Welcome everybody to GoLocal Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder. A couple quick notes just to give you a quick update. First up, later today at 12 noon, Dr. Michael Fine, former director of Rhode Island Department of Health, will be joining us again, and he'll be talking about the latest numbers and what the implications are for some of the trends that he's seeing. At 2:30, we're going to have Governor Raimondo's briefing live. That'll take place up at the State House. And at 3 o'clock, Jennifer Lawless, professor of political science at the University of Virginia, she'll be Skyping in to talk about what's going on in American politics, the Biden-Bernie race, the Biden-Trump race, and everything else that's going on across the country, the politics of where we are today. First, let's go to Dan Chenevert. He's the head of the Rhode Island Manufacturers Association. Dan, thanks so much for Skyping in. Dave?
Good morning.
Sorry. Dave, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Dave, talk a little bit about how Rhode Island manufacturers are making the pivot over to what they were making, what they were manufacturing, what they were developing 45 days ago to what they're now being asked to develop, produce, innovate right now.
Very proud of the manufacturers. They're a nimble organization. Most of them are able to pivot very quickly to adhere to some of the requests that are being coming forth from the state government and also on the federal side. We've got companies that were producing vodka and gin and now doing sanitizer. We have companies who've put forth their services and they're being tapped by the Commerce and the administration to do certain things. I got to say there's going to be well over 25 companies that have pivoted and now doing various aspects of fighting this coronavirus.
Dave, the highest profile company might be Honeywell, who's now ramping up and has hired upwards of 500 people in the state. Mm-hmm. What is this as a message it sends to the economy, to those who are looking for procurement, both during this period of time and in the future? Isn't this critical to reestablish? This is the opportunity to really reestablish and grow American manufacturing?
Well, I don't think manufacturing in Rhode Island ever went away. I think we evolved into a more advanced type manufacturing, very technical type jobs. But what I'm seeing, and I said this to the governor and Stephen Pryor, in my opinion, the silver lining that's going to come out of this situation is the reshoring of a lot more component parts and product being shifted back into the United States. I'm not saying we're going to have all of it, but I think the major corporations in the U.S. are going to say, hey, maybe we should be 20-80, 30-70, or 40-60 relative to our outsourcing. So I see a lot more reshoring coming back in. The fact that the state has allowed the manufacturers to continue to operate is because we are very strong support to the fight on the coronavirus. And also because the manufacturers have really got into the fact that the strongest asset they have is their employees. So they want to make sure they're kept safe and healthy at all times. And they're taking major steps in those directions to ensure that happens.
Over the last 30 years, every business school has taught lean manufacturing, supply, demand, those two things. Nobody's got any inventory. Will this maybe shift our thinking from a business infrastructure to be a little bit smarter about making sure that we've got inventory of critical components that we need across the board, obviously to fight a pandemic, but in other concepts and other needs that the economy has?
I think I kind of agree with you with that. I think especially on the medical side, they're going to have to relook at all this. I think for the federal government to say to the states that they should have been prepared for this, I think that's not correct. We rely on the federal government to be our resource to the states. And in this particular case, the states, under the governor's guidance, has really ramped it up we've been working with companies to do ventilators. We've been talking to companies about making masks. And we've done that within a short period of time. So to be able to counteract the loss of the supplies that we had, I think the manufacturers have really stepped up to the plate to help out very much so.
Dave, you guys, your organization, Rhode Island Manufacturers Association, have issued a pledge which you're having your members sign on to that ensures a safe workplace, a safe product. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it does a couple of things. One, if you're already doing it, you're just validating what you're doing. So the second portion of that, we're able to show our employees that we are committed to making sure we keep them healthy. And then the third is to show the administration and the governor's office that we are definitely going to make sure that our employees are kept safe. And the intent of this pledge is not to incur a liability or a fine. This is all voluntary. But it's sort of like, you're validating what you're saying you're going to do. It's almost like an ISO. You whatever you write in your ISO document, you have to make sure you're doing it. Well, this is the same thing. You're doing certain protocols that the Department of Health, the WHO, and the CDC are requiring or asking of companies to do. And we're just saying, something, we're going to do it. And we're showing it and we're validating it by signing on to this pledge. And I cannot emphasize more to any manufacturers who are listening how valuable having this document signed means to the entire manufacturing community. This is a statement being made by us that we're here to support the administration, but we're going to do it in the right manner.
Listen, everybody in the country wants everyone to get back to work, but the science tells us that's not going to happen, that this, until there's a vaccine in the country, we are going to face this virus over and over again, and in all likelihood again in the fall. Is this little block of time the opportunities for manufacturers in Rhode Island to really almost rethink their business simultaneous to meeting the demands that the community is asking them for? Because they're going to be more critical. That short distance delivery option is a lot more valuable than having to wait for something to come across on a plane or on a boat from China.
Yes, right now we just formed a manufacturing task force called the New Norm, and we have about 5 or 6 manufacturers similar to the kind of manufacturing that I was involved in for 31 years. And we have Commerce, we have Stephen Pryor on this, and we're doing conference calls once a week to start looking at the new norm. I think we need to be prepared. If this just happened now, I think it's going to happen again at some point, and we really need to be geared up to be prepared for it. And that's what we're trying to discuss. What do we need to do differently? What do we have to look at things? And that's how manufacturers are. Most manufacturers deal with a problem right up front. It doesn't get debated too long. We just try to solve the issue right away and be prepared. And that's what this conference call on a weekly basis is going to achieve, where you're going to start setting the tone for the new norm.
CVS is headquartered in Rhode Island. They have significant warehousing and distribution infrastructure. CVS is one of the largest healthcare organizations in combating this issue. Are manufacturers talking to CVS? What do CVS need to fill their pipelines during this crisis?
We take our marching orders pretty much from the Commerce, Rhode Island, or the administration. So we don't really have the direct contact to the CVS, but we do it indirectly. So there's a lot of manufacturers who are also offering space. For example, Honeywell, I know, is getting maxed out, and we are there. We have other locations trying to help them out with space. So they just are. Everyone's just pulling together to try to help each other.
Dave, anything else folks need to know before we go?
I just want them to understand that the manufacturing community is striving to keep the economy in Rhode Island going. That's why we're trying to get this pledge signed by so many manufacturers to show the citizens of Rhode Island and the administration that we are serious about trying to keep our employees as healthy as possible. All the protocols are in place, but more importantly, we're going to try to keep our economy rolling. If manufacturing is doing well, the state's going to do well, and we'll bounce back faster. If we end up shutting down our manufacturing, in my opinion, it's going to take a long, hot time to get us back on square one.
Yeah, I talked to a manufacturer on Monday. He's got 68 people working pretty much nonstop. They've got a good, safe work environment. That's 68 people who aren't filing for unemployment insurance. That's a company that's vibrant. They're not losing their customers during this turndown. I think you're absolutely right. This is a critical period of time and a huge opportunity for manufacturing to expand its foothold and also once again demonstrate how critical it is to have domestic manufacturing here in America.
Absolutely. And one of the things we've also do is when we sent the pledge out, we also sent a checklist. And the checklist is really a guideline. If you are doing X, Y, and Z in your facility, you use the checklist to review and see, hey, geez, I didn't think about trying to do that as well. But most of the manufacturers are really cognizant of what we're trying to achieve, and that's the safety aspect and the protocol. How to deal with someone who comes in and sick. What are you going to do with it? And we're trying to educate as much as possible, utilizing our website, phone calls, interaction, emails. Reimer right now has been acting as the conduit to most of the manufacturers, and we've done well. But I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have people endorse and embrace the pledge. One manufacturer actually went out to his employees and showed them the pledge so that they would understand how committed he is to making sure they're safe. And each employee volunteered to sign the pledge as well to help him keep the place clean and sanitized. So I think it's a positive thing. I think it's something that all the manufacturers should be embracing and not be afraid about it. But if anybody has any questions, they're more than willing to contact Reimer, and we'll be glad to answer those questions and concerns.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time. Please be safe. Congratulations on your work with the manufacturers on keeping this critical part of the Rhode Island economy humming. For everyone else, we'll be back at 12 noon with Dr. Michael Fine, then 2:30, Governor Raimondo's press briefing, and at 3 o'clock, Professor Jennifer Lawless from the University of Virginia. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you.
We'll be back. Thank you, Dick.